Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Author Diedra Greenaway joins us today to talk about her book, The Blueprint, A Guide Towards Cannabis Business Ownership. Diedra will speak about the ins and outs of cannabis ownership.
Hello and welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. My guest today is Diedra Greenaway. Diedra will be speaking about her expertise in the cannabis industry and how she is bringing her knowledge to future entrepreneurs. Let's bring her on. Diedra Greenaway, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. It's so nice to have you. I'm just wondering how you first became involved in the cannabis industry.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I became an elected official for the city of Los Angeles. I was the vice president of Northridge East Neighborhood Council. I was then elected as a budget advocate for the city of Los Angeles. And from there, each of the budget advocates has a certain department within the city structure. I was the budget committee chair for the Department of Economic and Workforce Development, the Department of Housing, the Department of Aging, and I was a budget committee member for the Department of Cannabis Regulation. It started there. A friend of mine, I had a dispensary, asked me to come, and I went to visit, and I told him that I wanted to have my own dispensary, but I wanted to come and see how the workings were within the dispensary. So I took vacation for a week, and I went there and I learned hands-on the ins and outs. And he picked me up for lunch one day, and he said, "Hey, come, let's go to lunch." And I said, "I can't leave." He said, "You don't work here." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, you got a point there." So we left, and he asked me what I found, because I guess he knows me. I look for things, and I told him what I found that were hurting the shop. And he said, "I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse." And the rest is history.
Wow. It's always those little nuances of the offer you can't refuse. I love that. So Diedra, as an educator for over 30 years myself, and I'm an author also of a couple of books. I'm really interested in the format of your book, The Blueprint, A Guide Towards Cannabis Ownership. So how do you dive into the history of cannabis and the exclusivity of that industry historically?
Well, this is the book. I'm going to send this to you.
Oh, please. That's great.
I didn't think that this book being written, I didn't think that I had enough time, because the industry had been going on since 2018. And I cut out all the fluff and pretty words, just dove right in. And I wanted people to understand what the process was in getting a license, because you cannot run a legal shop without a license. And when people do that, I don't knock anybody's hustle, but when people do that, it causes strife between the legal industry and the city, because the city continues to let these illegal people come in, and they could be selling anything. There are limits to how much THC can be in a product. They go above and beyond that most times. And so we just want to keep people safe, and, with child-proof packaging and all of that. And these illegal dispensaries most times don't have that. So a child could get it, I don't think that they really care about who comes in, how old they are when they come in. Their goal is different from a legal dispensary, because our goal is to give a safe product to people that are needing it and for people that are age appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about people who are needing it, I have family members who have medical marijuana cards. And how has that changed the industry, both the licensing and just the whole tenor of how that cannabis industry seems to move forward, especially where the medical cards are concerned?
Well, the medical cards, the dispensary where I was, we also took customers with medical marijuana cards. Now, that does not mean that you don't pay taxes. It's just that your taxes are lower than everyone else's. But we also have to verify. And our front desk, where I was, our front desk, we would take their information. They had an email address on their card. We would type the information in from their card to verify it. If it checked out, they could come in. If we couldn't verify it, then we couldn't let them in. I mean, we're not going to break the law or get our license revoked because of not properly checking.
Gotcha. I have a close friend, Josh Shearing, a friend of mine for over 25 years, who's in the cannabis industry in HR. He, formerly worked for Sanctuary Medicinals in Massachusetts. He's moving over to Fernway, which is, I think, the #1 vaping company in Massachusetts. And he's often told me about the legalities involved, even in the HR and the whole things you said. People just don't realize the ins and outs of the industry. So you do speak a lot about the legality of both marijuana as well as the legalities involved in impacting people's ability, particularly people of color, to be successful in this multi-billion-dollar industry. What can you tell us about that and how you help people through this book learn more about actually being in the cannabis industry?
My goal for writing this book was to help people who have experienced discrimination and exclusion socially, politically, economically, because of unequal power relationships across these areas, to include cultural dimensions. And that's why I wrote this book. I had so many people come into the shop and they're like, I had this one guy, I'll tell you this story. This one guy came in and he looked like he was in shock. African-American guy. He talked to one of my shift leads, and my shift lead called me over to talk to him. And he told me his story. He said, I spent 20 years in prison for having a small amount of marijuana in my possession. I wasn't selling it, it was for me. But I spent 20 years in prison, and then I come in here and see people that don't look like me making money hand over fist. And he cried. I said, do you want to sit down and talk about it? He said, no, I just want to get my mother's cream for her pain, and I want to get out. He did not buy anything for himself, and he left. The ACLU has an interesting report about marijuana. In 2017 through 2019, 30.2% of all possession arrests were people of color, Black people in particular, and they only make up 12% of the state's total population. Right. So that's crazy. In New York, 5 boroughs, reported people of color comprised of 94% of the same arrest. I mean, and these stories just go on and on and on from state to state. Right now, we have 37 states that are that have legalized it in some form, whether it be recreational or medicinal. Mm-hmm. And 27 states have decriminalized portions of it. So you can be caught with a small amount and get a fine or a misdemeanor, whatever. But anything past the amount that they state is a felony, and you're going to get arrested. It's interesting because 80% of the population of Georgia voted to put cannabis on their ballot this November. I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. I mean, because they're part of the Bible Belt. And I think they just allowed you to start buying alcohol on Sunday. I'm not sure.
Right. Well, that's so interesting. And you bring up, and not to get too political, but unfortunately, you can't argue those statistics. Those are the factual statistics. So you've been in the budget end of this. You've been at the cannabis ownership end of this. What are your thoughts about the problem about the disproportionate number of arrests for people of color when it comes to cannabis? What are your thoughts? What would be your plan if you were on a committee and I said, okay, Diedra, what are your thoughts? How can we stop this? How can we improve this?
I think that well, I'm sure. And matter of fact, I'm not going to say I think. I'm sure that it's a stigmatism when people of color go into a business like this. I mean, and it goes way back to the war on drugs, where if you got caught with rock cocaine, you got the book thrown at you. If you got caught with cocaine, just powder cocaine, then it was a lighter sentence. They're both the same. It's just that one additive that makes it different. And I think that we need to start by going through people's records, seeing if they are nonviolent charges. If they are nonviolent, we need to make a way so that they can get out, get their record expunged, and drop the stigmatisms. Because, I mean, people look at African Americans and they say, oh, this person was a drug dealer, or, you know, I don't want to do business with them, or a criminal, I don't want to do business with them. And that man that came into my shop, he had a point. The people that don't look like me are making money hand over fist in this industry. They are social equity predators. I mean, people that see a Black person that has a legal business under social equity, and they're losing it for one reason or another. Sometimes it is financial literacy. I'm just going to be honest, because you know, they took economics and finance out of the high schools. So at least in the areas where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And so that's a disadvantage. And so what these people come in and do is say, oh, you know what? How about this? How about we be partners, but I have a bigger percentage. We can still use the social equity. You'll just stay on this side and let me run everything. And that's not fair. If you're going to help somebody that has a social equity business, help them to keep it. Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross, he is actually helping people get their records expunged. He's helping them to keep their social equity. He's doing, I mean, you know, he served his time, right? He did what he did, he served his time, and that should be the end of it. And what he's doing now is he's trying to help people to keep, he's not a predator, he's trying to help them keep their social equity. And he's hooked up with this organization called Indica, and they're doing great work here in California. I mean, but it's a slow process, and we always get met with a brick wall. But me, I'm like this. I will just keep beating that wall until it's gone. Yeah.
Well, I do pay attention to some key words you use: social equity, predator, and they aren't pleasant when you put the two together. Mm-hmm. And I'm also mindful of the word that's in the title of your book. I love the fact that you call your plan a blueprint, because that's exactly what it is. What was your plan or your blueprint as an author to create the blueprint for your readers? What do you want a reader of your book to walk away with?
I want my readers to understand that you don't have to indulge in cannabis to be in this space. I don't indulge in cannabis, and I did very well in this space. I also want them to know that you have to, I mean, if there's something that you want, you have to do the work to get it. These ladies, they have a dispensary in Los Angeles and South Central. They had all their ducks in a row, and the city still denied them their license, and they ended up suing the city. And now they have their license, and their business is flourishing. So I'm gonna say, just like I said in this book, I'm giving them the keys. They have to take the initiative to do it if that's what they really want to do. But it doesn't stop at just a dispensary or a grow. Our industry mirrors everyday industry, and the fact that everybody uses it. Everybody has a place in it. IT, management, accounting, law firms. People can start an edible business if they can't afford to start a dispensary. Just start small and build your way up. Build your brand, get into a shop, and then branch off and open your own. Cookies has it. Foria has it. I mean, just, it's an industry thing, but you have to have some financial literacy. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you, and you will get those social equity. If you go that route, those social equity predators, once they see that you're getting weak or about to lose your shop or business.
Right. And certainly business is business, whether it be clothing, cannabis, a service business, a repair shop. But the truth is, you use the word key, that you're giving them the key, and that's very important. I know I have Great Success Education is my tutoring and education business. And it's not a franchise, but I know there are franchises out there, and they've said things like, to open up the franchise, it's $400,000 before you turn the key and open the door into your business.
Right.
So I would argue that obviously your book is invaluable, because you mentioned the financial literacy, but it is difficult when you have the financial literacy and you learn all these things and have the information, such as from a professional such as yourself, and still for other reasons, social equity or inequity reasons, you see obstacles along the way. So I think you're doing a tremendous a tremendous value to people to offer up these words of gold, quite honestly. But I have to say that I know that you quote the statistic, Diedra, that over 400,000 people are incarcerated due to drug offenses. And now you're a former government employee. You worked with huge budgets, but you're really helping disenfranchised people learn about business ownership vis-a-vis the cannabis industry. You're a woman of color in a field that has not been very inclusive to females, and certainly not to people of color. So what obstacles did you have to overcome? Because some people would argue, wow, she started with 2 strikes against her. And what can you tell us about, you are the kind of person, you said you keep moving forward, but what obstacles did you have to overcome? Because too often we hear about the glory, but not the story.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I've worked in every level of government. I started with the feds. I went to the state, and then the city. And I've even been elected a union steward for APC, Academic Professionals of California. I have 2 master's degrees from the University of Maryland, an MBA, and a master's of science. And my MBA taught me how to deal with different personalities. I have experienced racism. I have experienced racial slurs, but that's an easy fix. You can get banned from the store and never come back. So I wouldn't just do that. You have to put yourself in people's position. sometimes people have a bad day. I don't say that because I think that racial slurs or discrimination, especially against women, are acceptable. They are not. I used to be a hothead, but not now. When I was younger, yeah. You threw something at me and I came right back at you. But right now, I think that with everything that's going on in the United States, across the world, it seems like, I mean, we are in a bad state. And I overcome it by separating myself from it. You're in a place where you want to be in a place where I am, and you are throwing slurs at me. What am I to do? Mm-hmm. Am I to cry? No, I'm not going to do that. I will give you an opportunity to self-correct, but if that doesn't happen, then you have to go.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of experience. It's a lot of work, and quite honestly, I've always said you can't control everything, but you can always control your attitude about those things, and you certainly have a wonderful mindset for this. So, in closing, Diedra Greenaway, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your passion and courage for bringing the book, The Blueprint, a Guide Towards Cannabis Ownership, to the people who need it most. To the viewers, I'll see you soon, and have a great day. Diedra, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.